The transfer portal comes for Ole Miss football as well. We'll explain what we're talking about. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. Do us a favor and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we will be very grateful indeed. So the transfer portal has come for the portal king. The transfer portal, three Ole Miss players entered the portal yesterday. And those three are Tywone Malone, Markevious Brown, and Elijah Sabbatini. Now, there's several schools of thought on this one when it comes to fans and the way they look at what's going on. And the doom and gloomer fan, the one where everything is always wrong, is you're losing your depth. Your depth is going away, which there's an element of truth to that. But whenever you get players and they come in, you're getting the other team's leftovers. The same type player. It's just two different perspectives of how it's gone. So on the other side, the Ole Miss fan that is extremely optimistic might say, hey, these are multiple year 3 players that are not contributing in a meaningful way. On the other side, they could do quite well, honestly. They could go someplace where the system fits. So it's a complicated issue, the transfer portal. Personally, I'm not worried about this. I fall into the camp of this is a year 3 player that has not done much in the past. Good players, they have a chance to be very successful. For whatever reason, whatever system, whatever's going on, it hasn't clicked here. Now, cornerback, that was Walton has come in from Georgia Tech. We've apparently recruited, and we're waiting to see if he's eligible. Deshaun Gaddis, I haven't heard much about that, but that's another cornerback as well. You have DeAndre Prince coming back. You have players on the outside. Ole Miss is going to be fine. I mentioned yesterday, and my everydayers can attest to this, that the first line of defense, we are pretty good. If you can see what's going on, defensive line, linebackers, defensive backfield, pretty good, pretty settled. The question remains when it comes to those depth pieces, okay? So does this hurt depth? Yes. Does it meaningfully affect winning in one way or another? No, not really. I mean, it's just the way it is. We want it to mean something. We want to assign meaning to it, but there's not really a way to do that. The reality is J.J. Pegues is going to determine a lot more about winning than his backup. Now, we talked to you about the defensive line and Ole Miss needing to get into the transfer portal. That has not changed, but that was an issue before yesterday. So we'll see what's going on about this transfer portal. Like I said, Tywone Malone, Markevious Brown, and Elijah Sabbatini entered the portal, which is fine. Lane Kiffin told us during spring that there was fit problems for certain players going from defensive system to defensive system. He just did. And that is the fact. I've told you for weeks how clunky this defense could look because there's players that are going to be asked to do something that they are not built to do. And this is the dirty secret, okay, of recruiting, of high school players. A system is everything. If you get a 5-star player, like a truly elite athlete, like Centurion Perkins, would be able to fit in multiple systems, but they are very few and far between. The reality is, Ole Miss isn't Alabama. Ole Miss isn't Georgia. So Ole Miss needs to find very system-specific athletes that might be rated as a 3-star or a low 4-star to make their defense or their offense work. And if you can do that, you can be very successful. Look at what Navy and Army do with the system that they recruit to and the system that they run. They don't run it because it's effective. They run it because it gives them an advantage, because there's athletes that can be successful in it. If you look at the way they play defense, the Jay Bateman stuff, the weird stuff defensively, they do schematic things in such a way that allows them to get players that might get overlooked by other teams. They might be 2-star players overall as far as, a regular pro style system, but they do 1 or 2 attributes that can really help them out. Take that military academy strategy, and that also gets to a mid-level SEC program like Ole Miss, like Arkansas. You have to find players that have upside that you want, that these major powers are not recruiting. Now, we're going to recruit better. We're going to recruit excellent over, for talent. It's improving year by year. But historically, there's a build. And that's the reason that Ole Miss has been kind of a yo-yo type program, to where we're up and we're down and we're up and we're down. And that is because sometimes those 3-star players do not hit. Sometimes what you saw isn't actually there. It's a mirage. And whenever that happens, you can be in a little bit of trouble. But people looking at what's going on defensively this year, I don't think they were realistically looking at this defense before Pete Golden came in. They just assumed that it would be better than what they had recruited to for the previous 2 years. And that just isn't the case. The system is completely changing. Different type players are needed to run different type systems unless you have a team full of 5 stars. So don't panic about the transfer portal. They're going to be active in the transfer portal, but the transfer portal is going to, come into focus. Tywone Malone, if he would have been if his baseball career would have been a little bit better, he probably would have still been here. That's the reason he didn't jump ship immediately after Chris Partridge left. Whenever he had baseball available to him, he had to see what was going on. When it didn't work out, he skedaddled. It's just the way it is. Markevious Brown, he's a career backup and probably a good player. He's been on the field a little bit, but it's not at the point where if he's not going to an SEC school, I'm not worried where he's going. Elijah Sabbatini, that has USM written all over it for whatever reason. And he'll probably be a good player at USM. That's probably where his ceiling level, in fact, is. It just is what it is. There's no real way to talk about it, but that is a realistic view of what's going on. Does it hurt Ole Miss's depth? I do not know. They could be 3 players that Lane Kiffin said was having trouble adjusting to the system. I know that I heard Elijah Sabbatini's name a couple times in the spring game. I did not hear Markevious Brown. And Tywone Malone, that's been an on-again, off-again thing where I think, honestly, playing baseball has hurt his development on the defensive line. That's just my opinion. It kind of is what it is. Coming up in the next 2 segments, we're going to have Derek Vandygriff, and we're going to talk about the Grove Bowl in the first one, and then we're going to talk about the weekend series against LSU in the second one. So then we're going to try something new today on this Thursday edition of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. But right now, I do want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Built. Something exciting is coming to Built.com on April 22nd. I don't have all the details yet, but the excitement is real. And if it's not something you want to miss, honestly. If you know how Built works, they have the most incredible protein bars in the world. They do these amazing flavor drops with unreal flavors in limited quantity. So mark your calendars and head to Built.com on Saturday, April 22nd to be one of the first to discover what the hype is all about. I can't wait to see what this new flavor is. Make sure to use the promo code LOCKEDON15. The promo code's back, LOCKEDON15, and you'll get 15% off your order at Built.com. This is pretty cool. I don't even know, like I said, I've been trying to dig in and figure out what this flavor is. I cannot figure out what this flavor is. Nobody will let me know. I don't do well with surprises. They still play these games. But go to Built.com on April 22nd. Use LOCKEDON15 as the code. You'll get 15% off your order, and you can see what the flavor is yourself. Anyway, pretty awesome stuff. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Every dayers. Tomorrow on the show, we'll have Tom Vanderford. Everybody loves to have Tom on the show. And we're going to talk some more about the Grove Bowl. And also, John Garcia will be in the house on Saturday. All good things on this Locked On Ole Miss channel. Stick around, subscribe to it if you do not mind on YouTube. Anyway, I'm here with Derek Vandygriff. We're going to do something a little bit different this week where he is on for 2 segments, because I do want to get his opinion about the Grove Bowl as well as the baseball preview. So we're going to start off on the Grove Bowl. Derek, what were your impressions in the ball game this weekend?
Quite frankly, I think that we can't go wrong with the quarterback position. I'm not sure that I've ever seen and understand it's a spring game, Grove Bowl, all that, but all 3 quarterbacks look pretty good. Lot of talent in that room, obviously. It's been talked about ad nauseum already throughout the spring, with Dart and Howard and Spencer Sanders, but I thought Dart looked really, really good, right? I mean, just the velocity on his throws, he seemed a lot more accurate and a lot more comfortable back there, which, you don't have to worry about people coming and knocking your head off every single play. It helps a little bit, but, thought Dart looked really, really good. Really impressed with Howard. That's the first chance that I'd gotten to see him play and throw and all that, so I think we have an absolute superstar in the making back there with him. And Sanders, made some really nice plays with his legs. His accuracy I didn't think was up to the level I thought it was before I saw him Saturday, but he made several good throws. Obviously has a good arm, just overthrew a couple of guys, but really made some plays with his legs that was really impressive, I thought.
Yeah, my favorite part about this Grove Bowl is basically confirmation bias for whatever take you want to have. If you came into this game thinking Jaxson Dart was the guy, you came out of this game thinking Jaxson Dart was the guy.
Yeah.
So we have heard this week on all these perspectives I've gotten Spencer Sanders, we've heard Walker Howard, and we've heard Jaxson Dart. All 3 of people that said they were the best quarterback in the game. And I just think that is fascinating. And that does that's your point. We are in good shape.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you got 3 guys that you're confident could probably go in there and win you a game. And, that's just something we haven't had in a long time, being that deep in it, at least, right? We were comfortable with Luke Altmaier coming in last year when we needed him to, but, with he wasn't at the talent level as Howard, Sanders, Dart, all of those guys are. It's really impressive what Lane Kiffin has built in that room in particular. So, but that's what he does. He's a quarterback guy. He knows that's what makes any football team run. He was going out and getting them. It further confirmed to me from my perspective, I think Quinshon Judkins is the best running back in the country. It's just unbelievable how he's able to move in a crowd the way he does, right? He's able to make people miss, and then the burst when he sees green in front of him is, I mean, it's just unbelievable that he can be that one cut guy and get to green grass, and then he's gone. And when you get into an actual football game where you're going to have a little more physicality and all that, we saw last year as a true freshman, he's not scared to lower his shoulder and run over you. I do remember one play from the Grove Bowl I thought was pretty fun. Actually turned to my dad and told him that whoever that defensive end was about to get chewed out. It was a read with Sanders and I think it was Bentley back there with him. And Sanders went to hand it off, pulled it, and then went around the end. But when he pulled it, the defensive end was left free. And he just come up and just smoked Ulysses Bentley. I mean, just drove him straight to the ground. I told Dad, I said, man, Lane's about to go tear somebody up for that one.
You're absolutely right about that. Listen, in my comments this week, somebody said, hey, why are you pumping up Chris Marshall and Michael Trigg from the spring game, because you sound like a homer when you do that? Am I seeing something that nobody else is seeing? Because I was very impressed by those 2 in the game.
Yeah. Chris Marshall was the one I was going to go to next. That was probably the player that I talked most about sitting out there watching that game on Saturday with all my buddies, my dad and all, was he's the real deal. There's a reason he's a 5-star, right? I mean, first of all, you start with the build. He's a really big kid. He's really thick, and he can run. But what really impressed me was when he goes up in the air, it reminded me a lot of really Laquan Treadwell is the one I kept going back to, but he's a little bigger and a little thicker. But when he gets up in there, he can contort his body in different ways to get around a cornerback and get his body in position to make a really, really tough catch. And he did that, 2, 3, 4 times on Saturday in that spring game for us. He was really impressive. And then when he got the ball, he wasn't afraid of contact, and that kid can run, man. He's going to be really, really good in this offense. I think they're really going to feed him. I'm right there with you. I was super, super impressed with Chris Marshall and Trigg the same way. Which if I'm remembering right, we kind of saw a little bit of it in the spring game last year with Trigg, how good he could be. But yeah, he looked really good. He's just an absolute nightmare from a matchup standpoint with the linebacker or safety, anything like that out there. He's so big, he moves so well. So yeah, I mean he's getting pushed, right? Because we got that Memphis tight end that's coming in, and I mean he's a very, very good player in his own right. So hopefully this year Trigg breaks out. He's got a year in the system. He's played in the SEC now for a whole year, so maybe this is the year he's able to break out and be that weapon that we've thought he was going to be ever since he transferred in. So yeah, whoever's the quarterback, you look back, you got Chris Marshall, Michael Trigg, and Quinshon Judkins back there. I thought Bentley did a really, really good job. I was really impressed with him. Seems like his vision's gotten a lot better. That's one thing I took away with him on Saturday. He was really hitting holes that were opening up for him that we didn't see last year. And I know he was hurt a good bit last year, so it kind of took away from his opportunities. But he seems a little more comfortable, seems healthy, and you can see why he was such a sought after recruit in the transfer portal when he came out 2 years ago and came to Ole Miss. So that would be a big boost to have somebody back there that can give Quinshon some breaks here and there.
Yeah, it was actually quite good, and I've been really impressed. I've talked to Dalen Flowers, Bill Flowers. I've talked to just several people over the course of the week, and they're all saying, hey, Ole Miss fans should be optimistic from this game. And that's coming from people that knows what a spring game is and what to look for in a spring game. And and I honestly agree. Like Quinshon Judkins, his lateral movement has somehow gotten better over last year.
I know it's unbelievable what he does when he gets into a crowd and he just spurts out of it somehow. He's able to keep hands off of him one way or another, and I mean he's just incredible.
Yeah, I'm going to mention this, and this is going to sound absolutely weird, but it reminds me of Dexter McCluster. He never takes a solid hit. At 220 pounds, he never takes a solid hit.
Yeah. Yeah, and then just kind of to your point, that's how Dexter made it through the SEC, right? I mean, what did Dexter play at? I mean, there's no way he was 200 pounds, was he?
He's about 165, 170 pounds. Actually, I almost saw Dexter McCluster die on a kickoff return against Vandy.
I mean, but that's kind of that's kind of your point, though. He's so shifty and he's so good at making people miss. Even if they don't completely miss, he never took a hit head on. They were always able just to get enough of him. But yeah, I mean, that's a great point you bring up, though. If you're able to have that particular skill set in the frame of Quinshon Judkins, that's a special player and one that Ole Miss fans better really appreciate over these next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming up after the break, we are going to continue with Derek Vandygriff, and we're going to move on to college baseball with number 1 LSU coming to town. Dylan Crews coming to town. We'll see what that's all about. Stick around. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. Do us a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell for notifications, comment down below, and upvote the video itself. Derek Vandygriff continues to join us. He is talking about, this time, the Ole Miss LSU baseball series. Derek, this baseball season has not gone, let's say, well to this point, but this is a series I'm kind of looking forward to because, honestly, with Dylan Crews chasing Dave Magadan's record for batting average in the SEC, and Dave Magadan, for those who don't know, hit .535 in the SEC. This late in the season, I'm just intrigued at what Crews can do.
Yeah, he's maybe the best player in the country, and if he's not, then the guy pitching for LSU on Friday night will be the best player in the country. Ole Miss fans are in for a real treat when it may not be a treat you want, but I mean, you're going to see two major league players come into Oxford, Mississippi this weekend, and you're going to get to see them firsthand. But yeah, to your point, Dylan Cruz. What he's done, I've watched college baseball for a very, very long time, and I followed it pretty closely. And I'm not sure I've seen anybody have a year like he's having right now, right? Like you're saying, hitting 500 halfway through the conference season already. And he does a little bit of everything. You know, he's not just up there for his bat. He's a really good defender. He's got pop. He can drive it out of the ballpark if you give him a chance. But he's one of those guys that he sits there and he takes what you're going to give him. And, you know, he's not up there looking for one particular thing. He's got great hand-eye coordination. He can really recognize the pitch coming out of the pitcher's hand, which is really, really tough to do, especially in this conference. And yeah, he's incredible. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And you know, when the game's over on Sunday, I can't wait to look up and see that he's only hitting 435 or so by the time he leaves Oxford.
Yeah, seriously, no doubt there. Ole Miss defeated Arkansas State this week in midweek,
Yeah, we
which,
did. Big
yeah,
win.
yeah, which normally that's not something to crow about, but as it's been
Yeah.
going, we need to
Hmm.
look for positives in this game. What were
Yeah.
positives that came out of that game?
Yeah, I've been pretty critical of Mason Nichols over the last couple of weeks, and quite frankly, he turned in maybe his best game of the year, albeit at Arkansas State. But yeah, he finally found his fastball command again. That's one thing that was really lacking. That's what killed him in that midweek game last week against Memphis. He wasn't able to throw the fastball for strikes. All he had was his breaking ball, and you start laying breaking balls over the plate, they're going to end up getting hit, and that's what happened that night. So, but yeah, he got his velocity back, got his command back. That's the big thing. You got to be able to put the fastball where you want to put it, and use that to set up your other pitches. So that was really nice. We saw Big Kemp come in there in the ninth inning, try to close it out for us. I think it's interesting that we're getting him as many opportunities as we are on the mound. It's kind of hard with him being out in the field. There's not a lot of warm up time, and then if you're in the eighth inning and he's due up to hit, then he can't go down and warm up then for you. So it has to work out perfectly to get him into the bullpen to get him warm if you want to bring him in. But look, Kemp's, he's his command isn't great. Obviously, this being his second appearance of, I believe, his career. I don't think he's pitched before this year. But he's got good velocity. He's got a pretty usable breaking ball, which is kind of strange. He's certainly intimidating up there. There's no doubt about that. You get him on the mound, that big frame of his. But yeah, he's got a little velocity. He's going to pump it in 94 miles an hour. I think it's interesting if we can maybe get him innings here or there. That may be another arm we can use. So. I thought that was really interesting. And then, of course, when he ended up walking the bases loaded, you bring in what's been, quite frankly, the best pitcher on our team so far this year, Mitch Morrell, and he comes in, and you could tell the announcers that night weren't people that have watched a whole lot of Ole Miss games and Mitch Morrell, because they were blown away that the first two pitches he threw were a slider. And I was sitting there thinking, like, man, you're going to see six sliders if this thing goes that deep. You're not going to see a fastball. Mitch is up there throwing. He's going to throw you the slingers up there. And sure enough, that's all he threw was sliders over and over and over again. Ended up striking him out on 5 or 6 pitches, whatever it ended up being. So, again, it wasn't a great effort by Ole Miss. Our bat struggled. We're leaving way too many guys on base, which kind of been the theme of this conference season. We haven't been able to drive guys in, and it crept up again Tuesday night for us. But we got the win. Mason Nichols looked better. Mitch Morrell still looks good. So, take the positives where you can get them, and try to use those going forward, because they got a hell of a task coming up starting Friday night.
All right, we talked about Dylan Cruz a little bit. Tell me about this LSU lineup, because I know it's more than just him.
Yeah, it is. There's Mr. Tommy Tank sitting over there at third base for them, the freshman from North Carolina State last year. He's a sophomore now, obviously, but at North Carolina State, he hit everything out of the ballpark, and comes over to LSU and kind of took a step back. wasn't hitting everything out of the ballpark. He was just hitting it to the wall. So unfortunately for Ole Miss, he has started to now get it over the wall. He's an absolute beast out there, man. He's going to be in college one more year. We get to mess with him again next year. And with the shift and everything, I can go ahead and tell you, shift everything to right field. I think in his entire career, he's hit now close to 50 home runs, I think it is, in the 2 years in college baseball, 40, 50, something like that. He might have pulled one of them. Everything is pushed to right field, even his home runs, oppo bombs, over and over and over again. Really good approach. He lets the ball travel. He gets the head of the bat on it, and just a really big, strong kid that can drive it. Uh, and so that's something we're just going to have to look at with them. It's a really deep lineup. It's a team that hits up and down. Their thing is they've kind of got bit by the Ole Miss bug a little bit. Their pitching staff has had several injuries, and they're really depleted after you get past Paul Steen on Friday night. I actually didn't look it up, but I'm pretty sure I'm right here. I don't think they've swept anybody in SEC play yet. Somebody's always able to get a game off of them, and it's because of their pitching. So we got to get through Friday night with Paul Steen, and then Saturday and Sunday go out there and give it our best shot, and see if we can still hopefully one of these games. If you get two of them, then you're cooking with gas at that point. But it's obviously a tall task. Really good team. They hit a ton, and if Ole Miss keeps leaving runners on base the way we're doing it right now, then it's going to be another long weekend for us. But for all you optimistic Ole Miss fans out there, if you wanted me to do some math for you, get into the NCAA tournament, I'm really good with numbers, and I can fudge them any way you want me to. So we're still alive technically, but boy, if this weekend goes bad, then that'll definitely put a damper on it for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we get out of here, is there a chance there's help on the way? Hunter Elliot this weekend?
I haven't heard him say that he's not on the way. That was kind of the last thing Bianco said. They were looking at the LSU series for him to return. So my guess is you're going to see Hunter Elliott this weekend. I'm not 100% sure I would throw him, just me personally, but I am 100% sure that if he's healthy, Mike Bianco is going to throw him. Now, the interesting question when it comes to Hunter Elliott is, when do you throw him? Are you going to put him out there against Paul Skeens, or do you want to hold him for one of the lower pitchers on Saturday or Sunday, right? You could throw Rivas on Friday and then hold Elliott for Saturday and piggyback Jack Doherty off of him, or use Doherty in some sort of super bullpen utility role if you're able to steal a game here or there. And quite frankly, that's his best role. I know we've talked about it several times, trying to get Jack back to the bullpen so he can get into a role that he's actually comfortable with and best suited for. So I'm really interested to see what Mike does this weekend, see if he rolls Elliott out there on Friday or if he holds him till Saturday, and at the same time seeing what he's going to do with Jack Doherty, because you can't take Rivas out of the rotation, I don't think. And quite frankly, I think JT Quinn's pitched so well, I don't think you can bring him out either. So, leave those two guys in there, get Jack back in the bullpen if you're going to throw Elliott, and then figure out the best time to use him this weekend. And, if you're able to steal a Friday night game, then throw Doherty in there, then see if he can give you 3 innings, if we're up in the 6th inning or whatever it may be. But if not, hold on to him and, piggyback him off of either Rivas, Quinn, or Elliott, whatever works out best for you the rest of the weekend. So definitely some options, stuff we haven't had all year with this pitching staff. So really interested to see what Mike's going to do with it.
Yeah, and I'm sure Mike knows more about baseball in his little finger than I do in my whole body. But I just think about it as the next high leverage pitch that Hunter Elliott would throw if it was me would be next spring. That's just my opinion.
Me too. Yeah, and kind of like you're saying though, they obviously have a lot more information than we do. They're looking at MRIs, they're talking to doctors and have their opinions and stuff like that. Look, it's completely possible that more rest doesn't do him any good, that he's as healthy as he's going to be and he's 100%. And if that's the case, obviously you run him out there and let him get his work in. But for me, if there was even a 1% chance that something could go wrong with that elbow in a high leverage situation, then I would question throwing him back out there this weekend. But they have all the information. I'm sure they got the best doctors in the world looking at him and giving their opinion. So I will trust whatever they decide to do this weekend with him.
All right. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Every day or tomorrow on our show, Tom Vanderford, he'll come in for his normal Friday segment. And also on Saturday, John Garcia is going to come by to talk a little football recruiting as well. Anyway, thank you, Derek, for going overtime today. This was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah. No problem, buddy.
All right. Take care, man.
All right. Hi, Toddy.
Hotty toddy.